Hello, critics, non-critics, and friends. Welcome to the Film Optix podcast, where we take a glance into blockbusters, indie films, and everything in between. I'm your host, Christian, and today I'm joined by a friend of the show, Mike, making his return. You may have listened to his takes on The Last of Us. You might have listened to his takes on when we did Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, and you've been on for so many things. It's very hard. Stranger Things as well. You're no stranger to the podcast, and I wanted to welcome you back. You can find his work over at Chatter After Podcast, the Amateur Otaku Podcast, and Collider.com. But before we begin today's episode here today, you can listen to our podcast on podcast platforms around the internet. That includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. And if you are a new or seasoned listener to the show, we would love to hear from you guys. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads at Film Optix. That is Optix with an X. Or you can email us at filmoptix@gmail.com for any movie-related questions. So today, we're going to be trying out some new things here. So today, we're actually going to be covering the Batman Caped Crusader animated series that is going to be hitting Amazon Prime on August 1st. So we got a few weeks. We're kind of recording this a little bit early, but we're going to be giving our spoiler-free thoughts for this episode. We're not going to be spilling any tea, as much as we would love to share that with you guys. We want you guys to dive into this as blind as possible. We're going to be here giving our spoiler-free takes, just our initial reactions on the season as a whole. So really quick, before we dive into Batman Caped Crusader, our spoiler-free review here, Mike, what's going on? How you been? Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back. It's been a minute. It's always fun, joining this podcast and talking, especially Batman, one of my favorite characters ever. So this is very exciting. Life's been good. This has been a very interesting year. Just keeping it with like the theme of like, we haven't had a lot of superhero content in 2024, which is not the norm. And this series coming out kind of reminded me that, yeah, I do love these characters and the DC universe, and combined with Deadpool and Wolverine, hopefully it's kind of that nice reminder of like, yeah, superheroes are kind of cool. We just kind of got too many of them for a time period, but allowing us to miss them is like, yeah, I'm glad to be back in Gotham City.
Yeah, I'm definitely glad to be back in Gotham City as well. Honestly, it's been a crazy year because, there's a lot of movies coming out, but TV has been just exploding since the beginning of 2024, and it seems to be nonstop. We're getting all these amazing animated shows in the superhero space, and just TV shows in general, like House of the Dragon, as of this recording, is still airing on HBO. We have Star Wars Acolyte. We have The Bear, Season 3. We have The Boys, Season 4. Of course, we're going to be talking about...
That's just this month alone, by the way.
That is literally just this month alone. And honestly, the TV goodness has not stopped, especially on the DC side. I think that new Suicide Squad anime is on Max right now, HBO Max.
Yeah, at the time of this recording, I know things will probably be different by the time the audience listens, but we currently have My Adventures with Superman Season 2 and Suicide Squad Isekai running on Max. So My Adventures with Superman is fantastic, as always. It's a great season. And then we're going to have this Batman show on Prime Video, strangely enough.
Yeah, that actually took me for a loop because this is still Warner Brothers Animation. This is still a part of the DC animated franchise or realm, so to speak. But yeah, it looks like Batman Caped Crusaders has finally found its home on Amazon, or Prime Video, I should say, because for the longest time, I remember this show was being shopped around, and I was like, why don't they just put it on Max? And then Mike actually explained it to me. He's like, well, some TV shows you can shop around. You actually get a little bit more money for it being on another platform. So I guess this is how Warner Brothers is making its money on this show.
I can guarantee you they probably made double or triple the amount of money by, licensing this out to Prime than they would have if they just kept it on Max. Like, it's Batman by Bruce Timm and Matt Reeves and J.J. Abrams. prints money.
Seriously, though. Yeah. But I'm so excited because, you mentioned My Adventures of Superman. I still need to watch season 2. I think when season 1 came out, I think I kind of just blew through the episodes. So it might just be the same for season 2 altogether. But yeah, with TV in general, like when it comes to animated superhero shows specifically, we've gotten a lot. The Suicide Squad and My Adventures of Superman that you just mentioned. And of course, we have
Kite Man. Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah. Kite Man. I forgot about Kite Man. Yeah, I totally forgot about that. Yeah. I think that might be the part of their marketing work. We're just going to drop this on a random time and see if people remember. But yeah, the animated superhero genre or the niche has been very strong with Invincible season 2 finally finishing up. And then, of course, Batman Cape Crusaders, which we're talking about here today, and X-Men 97. It's a wonderful time to be an animated superhero fan because this is amazing. I absolutely love it. And even outside of this, we have the Penguin show coming out on Max in September, I believe, as well as Dune Prophecy. There's so much TV left for the rest of the year. It's crazy. But
can you believe we're getting 2 Matt Reeves Batman projects in the same year? That's just wild, getting Cape Crusader and Penguin. Like there's gonna be a point where they're probably running like concurrently this year, which is crazy to think about.
They got to give us our Batman content some kind of way because we still don't have the Batman 2. We don't know what's happening with that. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm very excited. And every time there's like a new Batman project, and specifically something like this, which I feel like we haven't had in a while when it comes to a Batman animated series since Batman, the animated series, if you don't really count the Tomorrowverse, like the new 52 DC animated movies, I believe this is the first animated Batman project for a series that we've had in a long time.
The last one I would say is Beware the Batman, which was like, I don't know if you remember, it's like this CG animated show on Cartoon Network that was like in 2016. And then it was, Batman Brave and the Bold and Batman Beyond and Batman the Animated Series, like before that.
Yeah, Batman Brave. I forgot about Batman Brave and the Bold. I do remember that. And then there was also an animated series called The Batman, not to be confused with Matt Reeves' The Batman.
The Batman was the show. Not talking about the movie. This is going to get confusing. The animated series, The Batman, was actually really good. Underrated. Joker really should have wore shoes, though. That'll always weird me out.
I agree. But I'm happy and excited to dive into this review altogether. Like I said, it's going to be spoiler free. So without further delay, we'll be right back after this introduction to Batman Caped Crusader.
Asking the question on everyone's mind these days, what do you think about the Batman?
I'm frightened. This whole city's gone to hell in a handbasket.
Well, he's breaking the law, ain't he? So they ought to catch that freak and lock him up.
I won't say it's gonna be easy, but catching criminals is what we do. So this one dresses up like Dracula, so what? We're gonna take him down. What do we know about this Batman?
He's been beating the tar out of muggers and dope peddlers out there the last few weeks.
He's mostly been seen at night driving that hot rod of his 100 miles an hour.
And now he's even attacking our brave police.
Nice car.
This man is not a hero, he's a criminal. And his time in Gotham is up.
Mischief afoot, sir?
3 explosions in 2 weeks. Peculiar. There's something more going on here.
And we are back with our spoiler-free review of Batman Caped Crusader Season 1. We're going to be giving all of our spoiler-free thoughts. I'm just going to keep hammering that home because a lot of people don't like to listen. And it's like, hey, you don't want to run into any issues, so I'm just going to say spoiler-free as much as I can in order for that to get into all of our wonderful listeners' heads out there, just to, make it clear, because we can't really talk about spoilers since the show hasn't aired on Prime Video as of yet. So the creators of this show include Bob Kane and Bruce Timm, and the stars of the show, it's a pretty star-studded cast, I'm not going to lie. We have Hamish Linklater playing as Batman. We have Christina Ricci playing as Catwoman, Jamie Chung playing as Harleen Quinzel, and we have Bumper Robinson as Lucius Fox and Jason Watkins as Alfred Pennyworth. And the synopsis is as follows. After a family tragedy, socialite Bruce Wayne transforms into the Batman, where he crusades for justice, spawns unforeseen ramifications. That is like the basic synopsis for this show. It's on IMDb, so, you know, they have to kind of dance around it. It's a very overgeneralized synopsis for the show.
That describes all 1,000 issues of Detective Comics. I'm just saying.
Yeah, he's just crusading for justice, spawning unforeseen ramifications. It's literally what this is all about. And my gosh, we actually both just finished watching the entire season. And I believe that this is going to be a weekly release on Prime Video from what I can gather.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, it's going to be weekly.
Yeah. And you never know with Prime, though, especially the stunt that they pulled with Fallout. Because I thought that was going to be weekly. And then they just dropped it all at once. Because each of these episodes are only around 22, 24 minutes. So I'm wondering if that is a prerequisite for the show.
If you want to put a pin in it, I can take a look to see if it's in the press notes.
Because at least from what we see from the press notes, it says that it'll be available to stream exclusively on Prime Video in more than 240 countries, which is good, worldwide, beginning on Thursday, August 1st. So that kind of tells me that it's weekly, but like you said, we can put a pin in it for now. Until we get a little bit more information. But we're going to dive just straight into our initial reactions. I'm going to pass it over to Mike here because he literally just finished the series. So, Mike, what are your spoiler-free thoughts, of course, on Batman Caped Crusader?
Yeah, I legit finished it maybe 90 minutes before we started this conversation. So these are my very fresh thoughts and opinions on Batman Caped Crusader. This show rocks. That's all. I love how this series it's almost a celebration of all things that came before. We named all of these other shows that predate Caped Crusader, but you see the setting from the trailers. You all see this. It's not really a spoiler, but from the setting, this is very much in 60s era Batman. So it harkens back to Batman the Animated Series. We see references to the Adam West Batman 66. We see villains from Batman Brave and the Bold, and character designs look very reminiscent of that. Of course, it still is toting Bruce Timm's signature art style from the DC animated universe in the 90s. So it feels very much like a love letter to all things that came before, to Batman lore and animated shows and comics. And it leans heavy into the detective noir aspects, which I enjoy. You can feel that this is a Matt Reeves inspired Batman project, right? It feels like it's set in the same universe as the Batman at times, where it's half an episode is just going to be Bruce and Alfred just hunkered down in the Batcave trying to solve some mystery. And it's it's very episodic in nature, where it's okay, what is Batman's next adventure? What's he going to do now? What is he going to run into? What villain is he going to have to stop? And there's something so nostalgic about that for me, because again, that is something Batman the Animated Series was, where it's one day he's fighting Clayface, the next day he's fighting Ra's al Ghul, right? And so having that feeling back, we have a lot of serialized shows nowadays. We don't really get a lot of episodic type of stories anymore. So being able to just jump in at any point and see what Batman's next grand adventure is going to be is something that I appreciate, because that feels that's the feeling that comics give me, I should say. That's the feeling that I get from reading a Batman storyline, where it's he's fighting the Joker today, he's fighting the Riddler tomorrow. And that's something that I think is lost a lot, but it really helps in a Batman story with the Batman characters because he has such a fantastic cast of characters around him. And this show takes advantage of some names that you're probably not too familiar with, which I also think adds a new layer of mystery and intrigue where you're kind of like, oh, we went there. Okay, that's interesting. We don't just get, like A-tier characters from Batman lore. We get into the weeds of like characters you haven't seen in like 50 years show up. And that, as a Batman fan, really aids it, but also just as like a detective noir fan, it just goes head first into that. It's a detective show, first and foremost, superhero show second. And that to me is perfect Batman. That's the perfect balance right there.
I could not agree more. And before I give my initial reactions, I actually just got some confirmation because I was looking through the press notes, and it has been confirmed that all 10 episodes will be dropping on Thursday, August 1st. So all of the wonderful Batman fans out there are going to be able to just binge the crap out of this. Each episode is around 22 to 24 minutes long. It does follow that, I guess, that standard Saturday morning cartoon adventure run. But much like what Mike was saying, I finished this series yesterday and I did not watch any trailers. I knew that it was coming out, but I didn't know anything outside of that. I knew that Bruce Timm and J.J. Abrams would be attached, as well as Matt Reeves. And this blew me away, honestly. First and foremost, from the animated style, from the Batman animated series. I love how they're able to refine that and bring that into the new age of 2024, because it makes it feel like it's Batman. Because you ask anyone on the street, of course, it's like, hey, like, what's the best Batman show out there? Or like, what's your favorite Batman project? 9 times out of 10, they're probably going to say Batman the animated series, because that was just so impactful.
There's that one weirdo who's going to say Ben Affleck is their favorite Batman.
Oh, they get that live action crap out of here. No, I was joking.
Conroy for life.
Seriously, yeah. Like, as much as I love Christian Bale as Batman, it's Kevin Conroy like 1,000%. Like, he brought that character to life, and that show has been the staple, at least in the TV movie space, for Batman's portrayal for such a long time. And I think that Batman Caped Crusader lives up to that. Like you said, it is a detective show first and a superhero show second. And the writing is it's so crisp. It's, there's no convoluted plots. Like you said, it's more of an episodic adventure. Batman is fighting a new enemy or a new villain, I should say, within every single episode. But there is a through line with Harvey Dent's character arc. So you'll see a lot of that within this series. So, he's doing his mayoral campaign, things of that nature, and you get to see all of that unravel. But I really love what they've done with Barbara and just the relationship between Barbara, Batman, and especially between Barbara and her father. So it feels so real. And there's something about these characters where, like, you want to see Batman do Batman things, but even the non-superhero characters in the show, like everyone from Gotham PD, they have their own stories going on. And it's like, man, I love how we're able to focus on those characters as well as Batman, because this could have easily just been like Batman full tilt full time, but it shows the relationship between the Gotham City Police Department and Batman, but it also has certain non-superhero characters like Barbara and or anyone else on the task force have connections to other obstacles or other mob bosses, because Gotham is just like a super corrupt place. But I think within each episode of the show, like, and I know some people say, oh, like, what's the weakest episode? Like, these are all amazing. Like, there's not a single episode that I didn't like. And there's a lot of surprises in this show where it's going to leave your head scratching a little bit, but I promise you it makes sense. The character designs of, let's say, for Harley Quinn, because she is in the trailer, it's not your average Harley Quinn. And there are other villains that appear that may not sport the same look or persona as their comic book counterpart or of what you've seen in Batman the Animated Series. And like Micah said, I like how they were able to cycle through a few other villains that aren't as well known, that are essentially, at least from what I was talking from Mike off air, are deep cuts. Because there was at least two people. I was like, who's that? And who is that?
One I can talk about, because again, it was in the trailer. Like, we see Automatopoeia in the trailer. We get a shot of him there, right? It's like, we did a trailer reaction on one of the various channels. I don't remember which. But like, Jamie's asking, who is that guy? And I'm like, Automatopoeia. That, we'll get into that another day. We'll talk about that in a spoiler discussion, I'm sure. But like, a Green Arrow villain is such a random, like, throw in for a Batman show, probably compensation for Green Arrow stealing Batman's identity for like a decade on the CW. But I digress. But like, getting a character like that in a show like this, again, a character like Automatopoeia fits the whole like aesthetic of this detective noir like story. And I love the tone of this show. I love that this show is able to go darker than Batman the Animated Series. Like, It was always weird looking back. Like, don't get me wrong, Batman the Animated Series pulled it off phenomenal, where you don't think about it. But it's crazy how Bruce never had to, you know, like, go study a murder or like solve a murder in Batman the Animated Series, because you can't have death in a kid's show. Right. So this is just like, oh yeah, this is still like a PG-13 series. So like, people are dying and Bruce has to get to the bottom of it. And he has to figure out all these other things. And it's like, yeah, there's actual weight to the things that Bruce has to go through. And again, the other shows did it so well that we don't even think about it, but that's just a new layer, a new wrinkle that they're able to sprinkle in that I think is really great, and it keeps you on your toes. There's a moment in the finale that I'm not going to spoil, but like, I was legit scared because I'm like, this might not have a happy ending.
Yeah.
Because that suspension of disbelief of we're in safe kids zone is now out the window. It's like, oh yeah, somebody could very well die at any second. I don't know what's going to happen.
This is not your average Saturday morning cartoon programming. And you're absolutely right. There are things that happened in the show. There's always been suggestive themes in the Batman the Animated Series, but here it kind of just, it doesn't really care. It's just like, hey, like, this is what this is. And it's pushing the PG-13, or I guess it's TV, not TVMA, but TV 12? I'm not entirely sure what the rating scale for TV is for this, but essentially PG-13, but it's really pushing that PG-13 into some other suggestive themes, because there's a lot of great shots, a lot of relationships that are happening here where I don't think they could really pull it off in Batman the Animated Series, or if they do, it's a toned down version, because since this is, you know, the first Batman animated show that we're getting streaming wise, so it's kind of like no whole bards, everything kind of just is what it is. And Prime has shown with other shows that they're not really afraid to go those distances. But I will say, when it comes to, I mean, just Hamish Linklater playing or voicing Batman, I absolutely loved his portrayal, and pretty much everyone's portrayal within this entire series. But mainly Hamish and his relationship with Alfred, and Batman / Bruce Wayne actually refers to Alfred as Pennyworth in the show. So it kind of shows their relationship of what it is. It's more of just a employee and the employer situation. But what I think the show does amazingly well is that we all know that Bruce Wayne has two sides to him. There's Bruce Wayne, the philanthropist, the playboy, and then there's Batman. But I think what the show does well is that it really shows and wants to scream to its audience that Batman is Bruce Wayne's true personality. Anytime that Batman or Bruce Wayne, if he's dressed as Bruce Wayne, talking to Alfred in the car, he's always using his Batman voice, regardless if he's dressed to the nines or if he's not. And everyone else gets the, oh, hey, you know, like, I'm just like the, you know, like, yeah, I've been doing, you know, Bruce Wayne stuff and whatever. Like, he's kind of just living his life. But I love how there are a lot of characters in the show outside of Alfred who have been touched by Bruce in some way, shape, or form from his childhood onward. And yes, it does, you know, it's a Batman show. It's going to rehash the origin, but it shows how, like, the psyche of Bruce Wayne has just been warped from that one moment. And I think it's really important to have the origin within this series in some way, shape, or form, because it's a defining moment for Bruce's life, and everything that he does moving forward is in the name of his parents, trying to make Gotham a safer place. And you really see the relationship that Bruce has with other children that appear in the show, that he has that soft spot for them, especially with one in particular, but that's a spoiler, so we will not go into that. But like, it really does show those soft moments of Bruce. He's not just putting on a facade, because you do see certain parts of the Batman kind of cracking out of Bruce when he is living his everyday life amongst the city of Gotham.
Again, I don't know if it's like intentionally paying tribute to Batman the Animated Series. I mean, when Bruce Timm is like a lead on both shows, maybe some of his ideas just like spill over.
Yeah.
But like Kevin Conroy pioneered that idea of Bruce Wayne is the mask. Batman is who he really is. Right. And so even in that show, when he's Bruce Wayne, his voice is like 2 octaves higher. When he's Batman, it's super deep. But when he's with Alfred and he's in the cave and it's just the two of them, he's still in Batman mode because that's who he is. And so I think Linklater is doing a fantastic job putting on that same idea, right? I will say his Batman voice, I got to get used to it still, 10 episodes later. And I think part of my issue is that it's Bruce Timm's art style, because I'm looking at a version of Kevin Conroy's Batman, but that is not Kevin Conroy's voice. And I feel like if the art direction was a little different, I can adjust to the performance, because it's a great performance. He's doing phenomenal. But like, that disconnected my brain is just like, I have watched this show my entire life, like rewatched it 1,000,000 times. That does not sound right coming out of that man.
I agree. Yeah, it is a bit jarring because, like you said, we're so used to hearing Kevin Conroy's voice. But, you know, I think, you know, for what he does, I think his Bruce Wayne, I think Linklater's Bruce Wayne is really good. The Batman, it's like, you know, ever since The Dark Knight came out, everyone's got to talk like this. Justice. You know, it's the...
Where's the trigger?
Where are the drugs going? So it's... I think The Dark Knight has really pioneered that. Because even with Kevin Conroy, like you said, when he's playing Bruce Wayne, it is a few octaves higher. But it's like, okay, when he's not, it's just like he's just speaking in his natural voice. And it's like, okay, that's Batman kind of thing. But then, you know, we got The Dark Knight. And then it's just like, it's...
I think that's just a testament to how good Conroy's voice is, though, is that like... That deep voice is intimidating. Everybody else has to try and sound intimidating, which is part of the problem, where it's like, you have to kind of go like this if you're trying to scare someone. It's like, no, Conroy's natural speaking voice
is that
smooth, man.
Yeah. And it's, yeah, like you said, Linklater's Batman, there's a clear distinction, but it's, you know, he's doing it. It's so hard. Like, how do you live up to Kevin Conroy? It's like, hey, like, you know, I can do my own Batman voice, whatever the director's telling me to do for these scenes, but that's not a voice you can recreate or just like project, because some people just have that voice where it's like, hey, like I know who X, Y, and Z is. Like if they come up in any animated or even video game related thing, much like Troy Baker, he may be a little bit different because he's a freaking chameleon with his voice, and it's crazy. But sometimes
he's voiced Batman and Joker, and both of them sounded great, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like he's been all over the place. But yeah, for Linklater, I think he did a great job as Batman.
Oh yeah.
As well as, you know, since Harley Quinn is in the trailer, we have Jamie Chung. I think, and I like the characterization like of this series. Like you have people of like most of the standard Batman casts are, you know, white people, but I do like how they're able to mix it up a bit. You know, you have Commissioner Gordon, you have Barbara Gordon, and of course you have Harleen Quinzel playing different characters of race, and it's a breath of fresh air. I feel like, just because it's like if this was just like, oh, you know, it's just like Batman the animated series, it doesn't really stand out. Like I like seeing different renditions and different versions of every single character, and we've had different versions of Commissioner Gordon in live action as well. So it's like it's something new and a different take, instead of just, well, the race doesn't really change the character's personality or their motivations. It's not a part of who they are internally. It's just, you know, Commissioner Gordon just so happens to be white, but you know, let's swap it around a little bit and see what we can experiment with. But it's just a nice breath of fresh of air, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I love how they reinvent some of these characters. Like I was saying earlier, this is very much a love letter to Batman, but make no mistake, this show is going to go in different directions. And that's part of what's exciting. You know, like from episode 1, you're met with a huge change to like status quo, where you're just like, oh, okay, this is interesting. I kind of dig this. And Harleen is another character, which again, Harleen Quinzel was created for Batman the Animated Series by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini. So like seeing Bruce Timm kind of like reinvent that character a little bit in a way of like, this is a new modern retelling of who Harley Quinn is, I thought was very fascinating. And it was a very interesting approach. I think one thing that I really loved is, like you were saying earlier, Christian, like how all of these characters relate to Batman and Bruce, and seeing Gotham evolve into kind of the madhouse that we know. Because if it wasn't clear, this is very much like a year one type of story. I don't know if we know exactly at what point Batman is in his career, but we're still clearly very early on. Even from his suit, he's very much wearing like the original Batman costume, minus the purple gloves. They couldn't commit to that. It's a shame. But nonetheless, like it's very much invoking like early Gotham. And so seeing these characters for the first time and Batman reacting to them and seeing their new origins, like you were saying before, like we needed to see Bruce's origin again because this is such a vastly different universe. It's like, well, I don't know exactly what happened in his origin. Like it could have been like twists and turns. And I do like how they kind of changed that dynamic, like you were saying with Bruce and Pennyworth, changing their relationship. It's very much more like Detective Comics in the 40s, where it's like Alfred is just like his overweight butler. There's no like father-son dynamic that we're used to over like the last few decades of Batman stories. It's just like he's the hired help and Bruce treats him like that, and sometimes that's very bad.
Yeah.
And seeing that like evolve over the course of the season, it's just like, okay, this is an interesting direction. And it's not necessarily new. Like this is something that we've seen in Batman stories before, but it's very much a golden age type of approach to it, where it does feel refreshing going back to that dynamic between those characters, because it's not something we've seen in like 50 years.
It's not. And the intro credits to this show really, it just sets the tone. It is that black and white noir type of theme where it's very, like, it feels very like 1940s, 1950s. So it really just sets you in the mood every single time. And I didn't skip the intro once because I'm just like, it's so soothing, but it's eerie and it's in black and white. It's so
Leo skipped the intro for sure.
Yeah.
I already know.
Definitely. But the intro is not very long either. But, it really just says, hey, this is a detective show first and foremost. It has that noir feel to it. And then you get into all the craziness with the thugs and the corrupted cops, everything that happens with Commissioner Gordon and his relationship with Barbara. Like these relationships get tested with each other at some point during this series. And of course, there's always these cool little surprises where it just feels like a new Gotham. It really feels like it feels like Matt Reeves' Gotham in a way, where it's like, hey, like this is the Batman just in animated form. But I'm happy that this is animated because there's just so much here where there's little tidbits. And I think towards the end, I think the season finale, there's like a little nod or like hats off to Batman the Animated Series with like a specific shot. And I was like, okay.
There's a shot in the intro every episode that's a clear nod. Like when the mild spoiler, I guess, it's just from the freaking intro, guy. But like, there's a shot where the intro is going and like we do like this small turn around the Batmobile, and I'm like, because in the Batman the Animated Series intro, he gets in the car and that long muscle car just like shoots down the roadway, right? And it's like, oh yeah, you're referencing that because it's awesome and that's the best Batmobile ever.
Yeah, and in the Batmobile,
this car is pretty cool, dude.
Yeah, I was gonna say like nothing really beats the Animated Series Batmobile, but this one's cool. I can't really say it has like its own distinct style. It's kind of just like a long black car, but it gets its time in the sun as well. But let's wrap up here because I know we could talk about this all day.
I want to, before we wrap up, just talk about a couple of negatives because we've been singing this show's praises the entire time.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just about to ask if there's anything else you wanted to bring up, positive or negative.
I think it's too much like Batman the Animated Series at times, from the way that they like make the backgrounds and the buildings, architecture. It feels like Batman the Animated Series. We're talking about how like they try and invoke that spirit a little bit, and I feel like this show kind of still all the way to the end kind of struggled finding its own sense of identity a little bit. I feel like this Gotham City is a little devoid of life sometimes. Like we're with Batman and we're with those specific sets of characters that we can't talk about, right? But like I feel like in Batman the Animated Series, Gotham still felt a little bit more alive. There were still people walking down the street, or we'd go to different locations, meeting different characters. Like Dick Grayson would have his own set of characters that he would interact with sometimes. And it's like, we would see Gotham in the daytime and like Bruce is at some sort of event. And I feel like we didn't get a ton of that in these first 10 episodes, where it's like, we're always centered on the bad guy and Bruce and occasionally some supporting characters like Commissioner Gordon. But it's like, I want to know what Gotham City is like, just like on a day-to-day. And I feel like that was missing a little bit here. Also, I feel like the score, it leaves a little to be desired, where it's just kind of like ambient gothic music, but like nothing real distinct.
That's fair.
You know?
Yeah.
I feel like that could have helped set the tone even more. Mm. Like aesthetically, the show is still fantastic. But I in season 2, I would want a more recognizable score and just a better like show representation of what Gotham City is as its own character, right. Not just some thugs, the police, and Batman. You know,
you mean you don't want it to look like downtown Pittsburgh and The Dark Knight Rises, or like downtown Chicago?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like in Batman, again, I know we keep bringing up this other show, but like there's distinctly the red skies and like the gargoyles and it's like all this other stuff. It's raining like half the time. And sometimes we go see Leslie Tompkins at the hospital and we see what's going on there and what's going on at the circus. And like, I want more of that. This is very much just, we're in the Batcave with Bruce and then we go and we see it from his POV. I would like to see the city a bit more. We get a little bit of that, like with Barbara and stuff. I just want to lean into that a little bit more.
No, I think that's a fine and sound criticism because, Now that you mention it, yeah, I would say that the city does need to feel a little bit more alive. And it's always tough with like the first season of a new show. Like, you know, it's trying to find its footing. But, you know, since people know what Gotham is supposed to look like. But I do agree. Like, I do want the city itself to feel a little bit more alive. This story did feel a little bit more contained within these 10 episodes, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But I would like to see them expand on that as well, if we get a season 2 for sure, because that's something that people have always loved about Gotham. We see it in live action as well, you know, with Batman 89 and Batman Returns, and especially, you know, within the Batman live action. Heck, even within Batman Begins, like, Gotham needs to feel like a city that it's just, to the average Joe, whoever's living there, it's just like not worth saving. So I feel like we're getting there because of the storyline that's happening in this season. But what do you think?
It's like what you just said, though, right? Like, why is Gotham worth saving? And that's a question I don't feel like we get fully answered. Like, why is Bruce doing this? Mm-hmm. And to me, you know, it's the people of Gotham and like that vow of no other child will go through what I went through.
Yeah.
That's generally what his motive is. And in this show, we kind of get an idea of what his origins are and his motives. But I want to feel like, why does Bruce care about Gotham City specifically? And that, I guess that's my thing. Like, again, my last time bringing up BTAS. But in Batman the Animated Series, very early on in that show, we establish his friendship with Harvey Dent. We establish his relationship with Dick Grayson, his friendship with Jim Gordon, right? His friendship with Alfred. We see Lucius. We see him dating Selena Kyle and Pamela Isley. And it's like, we see Bruce have roots and relationships and friendships, even with somebody like a Leslie Tompkins, all throughout that show. And this series, again, it could be the episode count. It could be, since it's only 10, and like Batman the Animated Series' his first season was like 30 episodes. It could just be that we didn't have enough time to do that, which I think might speak to a larger just issue in general of like these super condensed seasons don't allow for us to like invest in making the city feel alive. And we only have why would we waste time on Gotham when we have 10 episodes to get a Batman story out, you know? Which, that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, Hollywood's gonna Hollywood, and you know this is a streaming this is a streaming show. But I wanted to ask you, if this show ever were to come to Blu-ray or like physical media, would this be something that you would pick up to add to your collection?
For the people who are listening, I know there's no video. I have every single Batman animated series from 1990 to present day on this shelf. So yes, 1000% day one buy. I will say, like, getting this and My Adventures with Superman it would make like 10-year-old me so happy. It makes 27-year-old me so happy. But like, I got the screener email for this and the Superman finale at the exact same time, and I'm just like, this is the best day ever, man.
So yeah, we have addressed all of our likes and our dislikes of this season, and Mike just flaunted his Batman collection. Even though we are an audio only podcast, as he had mentioned, he owns every piece of Batman content from 1990 onward. But let's get into our final thoughts and our ratings for Batman Caped Crusader here on the show. Then we'll close out. So Mike, what are your final thoughts and ratings for this series?
Yeah, this season's really good. I'm excited for season 2. Closing thoughts, I guess it would be, I love the whole detective noir aspect of it. I feel like that inherently is what I do love about Batman. I don't need to see him like smashing heads in every episode. Like, if it's just him solving some crazy case or mystery, that's enough for me. And this show is diverse enough in its cast to where it can do that. He gets into scrapes, he gets into fights, he gets into situations where I'm just like, oh, I did not think we were going to do that. Okay, he's fighting this thing. Interesting. And I really love that. I think the cast is phenomenal. I think the art direction is really solid. Overall, yeah, this is a really enjoyable Batman project. I would probably give it like an 80 out of 100. If I were just to give it like a score, like there's my gripes at the end we kind of saved there. It's like there are things that I want them to improve on. That said, this is still a banger of a series. And it just makes me really excited knowing that Matt Reeves and crew are still working on a Batman sequel and working with James Gunn in some capacity for that version of Batman as well. And it's like, it's fun being a DC fan again after a very long time.
No, I'm actually right there with you when it comes to the score. I was also going to give it an 80 out of 100. I think this is a easy, solid watch that anyone can kind of just dive into, hitting Prime Video towards the end of the summer. Of course, all 10 episodes are going to be dropping on August 1st. So it looks like Prime Video is kind of sticking to that because, I don't know. I guess it just depends on the project. Because for The Boys, they did like the first 3 episodes and then it was weekly after that. But they've been doing that for The Boys for a while. But for something like this, I think it makes more sense for this to release on a weekly basis. I know with Velma on Max, at least season 1, it was around the same runtime, about 10 episodes. But I think that actually released weekly. And then I think they did season 2. And that's just all at once. Because when it comes to certain TV shows where it's like, if you're only getting like 22 to 24 minutes, I feel like it's fine to do like the binging model. I can't remember for My Avengers as Superman if that's what the usual runtime for that is.
Yeah, My Adventures with Superman is 23 minutes. That's the show that airs on TV though. It's airing on Adult Swim every night. And so yeah, it's sticking to that usual like 22-minute time slot.
Okay.
That's also why that show is weekly, because it's airing on Adult Swim. I don't know why this show, again, maybe they just made that much money selling it, but it's like I feel like this could have done well on Adult Swim, get some of that ad revenue as a weekly release there.
So yeah, this is pretty much outside of like The Boys and Invincible. I think this is the first like well-known superhero show that Amazon's really picked up. I know they're doing Spider-Man Noir as well, which is kind of along the same lines, but yeah, I'm actually surprised that Amazon's kind of getting into the, I guess you can say more mainstream or well-known superheroes out there with Batman. Because like we said, I didn't know where this show was going to end up. They were Warner Brothers was shopping it around, and then looks like Amazon's the one who picked it up. And we didn't hear anything for a while.
This show was announced the same time My Adventures with Superman was, and we were on season 2's finale of that show. But yeah, I feel like Amazon, from their perspective, The Boys is ending. Mm-hmm. They need a show, and Invincible takes 3 years to make. So they need stuff.
Yeah, because outside of the Batman, I think Prime Video, I think we're getting season 2 of Lord of the Rings or Rings of Power this year as well. So I think that fits.
Yeah, that's in September. I think.
That fits later on in their slot. So it seems that they're not trying to rely on The Boys and Invincible as much anymore. I mean, we're still waiting on, was it season 3 or I think season 3 of
Vox Machina.
Vox Machina, thank you. I think
that's his final season too, right?
I want to say yes. We're also getting that other show that's kind of a part of the same universe, but anyway.
But that's a different D&D campaign, so they're unrelated.
Gotcha. So yeah,
the Mighty Nine.
The Mighty Nine, yeah. Not to be confused with the Mighty Number 9 on Steam and PlayStation and Xbox. I was like,
they also have God of War, right? I think.
Eventually? Yes, they do.
One day.
Well, now I don't know if they're going to have it or not because the whole Horizon thing fell through on Netflix. I'm like, well, is God of War next? But yeah, they are supposed to be doing that.
Horizon fell through because the showrunner was a piece of crap and got canceled, and they probably just said, we're cutting this. I'm sure Horizon will come back eventually.
Yeah, maybe Amazon will pick that up as well. But it does seem that Amazon is, they're trying to build out their library. They have really good shows, but I feel like they can be expanding a little bit more because they had Jack Ryan, and I think they also had Reacher, and I think Peripheral with Chloe Grace Moretz. But see, that show got canceled. I was so disappointed.
And Jack Ryan is over now, right?
Yeah.
So it's just Reacher, I think.
And Fallout. Yeah. So Fallout's supposed to be getting a season 2. So they're definitely building out their library, which I think is
Fallout, great. Gen V, Invincible,
Batman
is probably going to be their future, like, big projects going forward, I would assume.
Yeah, and I think Prime Video with Batman Cape Crusader, I like how this is on something other than Max. It just, like, I think it's great that, we're able to get Batman content in other streaming platforms. So it's not like everything Batman is going to be tied down to Max, even though, like, when this first got, now, so I was like, why is this not on HBO? But Prime's got a lot of money. They have a lot of money.
Whatever keeps Warner Brothers in business, I say do it.
Yeah.
It's sad that I have to say that because that's how far they're, like, close to going bankrupt. But, like, if selling the Batman show is enough, do that. Like, as long as you don't sell the IP, I'm sure you'll be fine.
Yeah. Let's have them make sure that they renew the license for Batman, unlike Pepsi with Sierra Mist. Because that is why Starry exists. They forgot to renew. It's a whole thing. Anywho's, so we have a official podcast score for Batman Cape Crusader. Of course, this is our spoiler-free review. So an 80 out of 100 from Mike and myself. So that basically just makes the podcast score an 80 out of 100 for Batman Cape Crusader. Again, all 10.
I'm changing my score to 79, so you have to do some math.
No. Not at all. It's too late. That ship has sailed. But as I mentioned, all 10 episodes will be dropping on Thursday, August 1st. It's crazy that we're almost in August already, but I'm very excited that people are kind of just going to be able to watch the whole thing. Like we said, around 22-minute runtime for each and every episode. It's as airtight as it can possibly be, and I'm excited if they announce a second season. So with all that said, that does conclude today's episode. If you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your preferred podcast platform of choice. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at Optix. That is Optix with an X. And don't forget to share an episode of our podcast with a fellow movie lover, whether it be your mother, your brother, or your significant other. Spread the love for the Film Optix podcast with a movie lover in need. And I would like to thank Mike really quick for coming back onto the show. It's always a pleasure having you on the show. Let the people know where they can find you and what projects you have coming up.
Yep, this is a pre-recorded episode, so the projects I have coming up are to be determined. But you can find me at Novice Cinephile on X, on YouTube, on TikTok, The Novice Cinephile on Instagram and Threads. Also a part of the Chatter After podcast. We're talking movies, TV, comics, all that fun stuff. The Amateur Otaku is a podcast. We're talking about anime and manga. I'm sure we've got an episode on Demon Slayer and Chainsaw Man and Boruto by the time you're hearing this. Also Collider.com. I, at this point of recording, recently interviewed the composer of Inside Out, which is incredible. Andrea is fantastic, and that is currently the second highest grossing animated movie of all time.
We did it.
Insane. So that's probably the biggest thing I've done besides like interviewing Kehu Kwan a couple weeks ago for Collider as well. Check those out. Those were a blast. He talked about Loki, confirmed some cool fan theories, so that's a blast. So yeah, check me out on the socials at Novice Cinephile. You'll see all that stuff.
Yeah, definitely follow Mike. All of his socials will be linked in the episode notes of this podcast episode. And since we're kind of pre-recording this, I can talk about episodes that you can listen to as of right now, such as, by the time of this recording, our The Bear Season 3 review will be dropping on the podcast, or will be available, as well as our Maxine review and our Kinds of Kindness review.
One last thing, this is pre-recorded. by the time you're listening to this, Christian is going to be on the chatter after, and we are going to be talking about superheroes and animation. So make sure you check that out. They're probably going to post around the same time, so I'll make sure Christian adds the link to that episode in the description for this.
Yes. Thank you for reminding me as well. Yeah, I'm very excited to talk about that. It's a great idea that Mike came up with, and I was like, yeah, I think that's a great topical conversation, and I don't do a lot of those as of late, and I really miss diving into the weeds of that, but definitely check that out. That will be in the episode notes of this podcast episode as well. And with all that said, thank you all for listening. If you enjoy the show, please take a moment to leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. That helps with our placements of this show. And make sure to stay connected with us by following us on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads for the latest updates. That was Mike, and I'm Christian signing off. And remember, life is like a movie, so go out there and make it a blockbuster.